So this is a video I'm gonna make about putting a name on the side of a piece of wood. Now, is this the best way to do it? No, by far. Is this the quickest way or easiest way? No, probably not, but it's a way that I found was useful and that worked for me. Now, this is the side of one bookshelf that I did here. I'm doing it for my nephew, Max. I'm gonna give this to him as a gift for his present for Christmas or birthday. I don't know which yet because they're about the same time. Anyway, I did it to one side here already, and I'm gonna do it to the other side then over here. And the way I'm gonna be doing it is I am actually going to be using utility knife to trace the outline of it, but then I'm actually gonna be using this tool here, which is called an oscillating saw. It's essentially a vibrator that can make plunge cuts. And for what I'm doing here, it's actually perfect for what I need. And I will show you how I'm doing it. Now, one of the first things you're gonna wanna do is for the piece of wood that you're working on, you're gonna wanna be able to secure it in some way because you do not wanna, you're gonna need both hands for what you're doing. So you do not wanna be having to hold down the wood with one hand and then doing the cuts and stuff with the other. I personally had gotten this bookshelf actually off the side of the road. And so it came pre-assembled like this and I'm restoring it. And so I didn't want to take it all apart. And so I jerry-rigged something to attach to these wood shelves here with these pieces of wood coming out, and then I just clamped them here on the sides like this. Now, if you're just using a piece of wood, you can actually do like what I was doing over here. You can just take this piece of wood that I was just working on kind of just as a conceptual, and you can just simply like clamp it to any work table you have, just so that it's being held in place and that you can use both hands to actually get the job done. Now, the first step is you're gonna need to be able to get an outline of the name that you're trying to write onto the bookshelf. Now, I'll say up front as well that this method I'm using, it works by far the best with names that are gonna have straight letters. So my name, for example, Sam, an S would be very difficult to do with this method. You can do it, but it's difficult. Okay, so now to get this on this piece of wood, what I did was I put it where I wanted it to, and for my purposes, I measured it 8.5 inches down to match the other side, and then an inch and a quarter on both sides for the amount that should be on each side of it. Now, the way in which I am going to put this on the piece of wood is I am actually going to take my utility knife here and I'm going to actually I'm going to trace along each side of this with this utility knife to get it onto the wood, just as an initial sketch. Now, if you're doing this yourself, biggest thing by far is take it slow. If you slip, you might put a scratch in the wood, which could in turn mess up this whole thing. And more importantly, you could hurt yourself. I actually have here a scar on my wrist, not from this, but from a bathroom I was helping redo, and I was using a utility knife and it slipped and then plunged here into my arm. Thankfully it wasn't too bad, but it was still pretty bloody, and to top off matters, the cut I was making with it wasn't even worth it, so I guess you could say the cut from the utility knife was in vain. Did it. Worst dad joke ever. All right, so here I am going to just do this nice and slow. Hope you can see it from that angle. All right, there we are. There it is. Now, with all of the letters off, now let's peel this off and see how it looks. Okay, and there is the outline then of all the letters. Now, the next part of this isn't extremely necessary, but I think it helps prevent mistakes. And if you make one major mistake on this, whole piece of wood is scratched up and you can't use it. So what I personally do is I'm gonna take this utility knife again and I'm just gonna trace all these letters and just make it deeper. The reason why I'm doing that is when I use this oscillating saw over here, I'm gonna be putting this into the wood and making plunge cuts as it vibrates in there. Now the problem is that I do not want this slipping. Otherwise, it could go over and make a cut somewhere else in the wood and ruin the whole piece of wood. And I really do not want that for this piece over here. So therefore, it actually what helps with that, so it actually has like a starter, if you would, is to make like just a groove with the utility knife, which then allows you to make the plunge cuts with the oscillating saw over here. So as you can kind of see, I am not perfect at this. This is just something I kind of came up with to do this project that I wanted to do, and I think it works decently. Is this the best way to do it? No. Do you need tools to do it this way? Yes. Can anybody do it? No, because you actually need the certain tools. But I'm not a carpenter. I'm actually an accountant, believe it or not. And for me, this stuff actually works this way. And I'm able to do it. So if I'm able to do it, chances are other people can do it as well. Okay. All right. So there is that now with those all put in there. And now we're gonna move on to putting in the oscillating saw and use that. By the way, I wanna make a quick note about what blades to use. I am no way an expert with the oscillating tool, but what I have found is that this blade right here with these longer ends, this HCS precision blade for wood is actually much better for doing this than this more universal blade with the shorter ends right here. So you can kind of see the ends here. You can use this. I've used this one before. Just in my experience, it slips and doesn't do as good a job cutting as deep. I personally like this one more. It's more precise and it's better suited for this. So again, if you don't have this, you don't have to use it, but I just find it's better. Okay, so now here is the tricky part. Not the tricky part, not the other part, but this is kind of like the difference. This is kind of unique how I'm doing it. I'm using this tool here, and I'm actually going to be doing plunge cuts into this along the sides. Now, a couple of notes: try not to do it like right on the end because it can slip and then go further into the wood. Try to start in the middle of your lines. Additionally, slow. I've said that again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Take it slow. Because again, if you mess it, if you put a huge cut somewhere else, little one, you can handle. Big one, you got to replace the whole stinking piece of wood and start over. Nobody wants that. So slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so now I have the M done here, but now I need to kind of just make it a bit smoother because you can kind of see how rough it is there. We want to make that a bit more smooth yet. And the way we're going to do that is with two things. One, we're going to use the utility knife here, and then also we are actually going to use this oscillating tool as well. I might have called it a saw earlier, but that's actually technically wrong. This is an oscillating multi-tool. And I have a sandpaper attachment here that I can just simply put on by putting this up and then just clicking this down here. And now this is all ready to go. And so this one actually specifically does allow me to get in there and get into the crevices. I also have a sanding block as well and some other sandpaper I can use for the hard to get places. But just slowly and steadily, you can just kind of work through this and just kind of smooth it down a bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on then to the A. So I'm gonna take this sandpaper attachment off and put my saw blade back on, and we're gonna get the A done. A. Okay, so again, slow and steady wins the race. Now, that's the X done. Now I obviously have to do more sanding yet and stuff, but that is everything cut out now. Now I just have to actually just smooth this down. All right, then here's the end result on this side. Looks a little weird here because of some sanding, but actually with some paint, that'll be fine. And then over here, here's the side I originally did. And I don't think this looks too bad at all. And I still gotta do some more yet stuff to the bookshelf yet. And I still wanna do a bit more sanding yet. And I wanna do some painting, but with that, it should be looking pretty good and be ready for a present. All right, hope this video was helpful to you guys. Take care now.